Welcome, welcome, welcome. My name is Neil Thrussell, and I'm really excited about today's show because we're going to take you on a pilgrimage. Hello and welcome. My name is Neil Thrussell. I'm doing this show solo. My beautiful and talented co-host Sarah Wade from the other side of the world, Perth, Australia, is fighting some health issues. So we're sending her. If you're tuning in and you're on Sarah's, Sarah, just send her some healing love and just drop a comment that you're feeling love for Sarah. And without further ado, I'm really excited to bring our guest on. Her name is Ariana Brackenbury, and I don't know how long I've known Ariana. And if we start saying numbers, that'll just show how old we are. So it's best we just leave it alone. Welcome, Ariana.
Hi, Neil. I'm so excited about talking today with you and exploring pilgrimages and spiritual journeys.
So, right out of the bat, what is What is a pilgrimage? Do you have a definition of what a pilgrimage is?
Well, I think I have many definitions in my mind, but to me, it's an inner journey. It's a kind of an opportunity to go explore. If you're doing a walking pilgrimage, so there's different kinds of pilgrimages, but more for me, it's a reconnecting into oneself, getting quiet, and allowing, if it's a walking pilgrimage, allowing that to unfold, let's say, and there's sometimes a lot of pain connected to that. It often is at the end of the day when you get some insights into things going on, and sometimes it's 2 years later. It's not always like the snap your finger kind of thing where as you're walking you discover the meaning of the universe.
Cool. It would be nice if everyone who went on a pilgrimage did discover the meaning of the universe, but sometimes it takes many pilgrimages.
It does, and I think
so.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to ask. So, when you were a little girl, did you dream of going on a pilgrimage? And then, as you turned into a young woman, you said, "Good gosh, I have to do a pilgrimage." Or was it one of those moments where in your life where you just went, "Oh, I guess I'm doing a pilgrimage"?
None of the first part, but certainly the last moment. So I was at the age of 60, I'd been through a series of events that had changed my life dramatically, and I had to sell my house. And I found myself homeless, actually, with a dog in my Volvo. So I didn't know what I was going to do next. I had to get, how sometimes when you're going through these tough times, you just take a breath and go day by day, and it's not really thinking about what's going to happen after. And I got in my car and I thought, oh, I don't have a plan. That was unusual for me because I had no plan of what I was going to do next. And so it was a time when I was just letting go of logic and reason. I just sat with it for a while. I tend to be a doer kind of person. So I went to stay with my stepson who had a vineyard in the Soyuz. And I'd also been in a car accident. So a lot of stuff was going on at the same time. I was talking to my daughter-in-law about what I should do next. And she was encouraging me to buy a round the world ticket. And so I came out of selling the house with very little funds left over. And, I had to still be somewhat careful of what I was doing. So we threw some ideas around and I still hadn't decided what to do. I had booked a short pilgrimage the year before with Jennifer Huff to Ireland. So that was kind of part of the planning. What am I going to do? And so one day I went to see a physiotherapist, and she said, "Have you ever thought of walking the Camino de Santiago?" And I was like, this big whoosh came through. It was like, okay, that's what I'm doing. I knew exactly. And I had seen a psychic a couple of years ago talking about eat, pray, love. So I created Drink, Pray, Love. I would go to Ireland and Spain and then go to Bali. So that was kind of my romantic idea of what that was going to look like. Didn't turn out that way, but that's more details later.
So your first pilgrimage, and I will use that term because you have been on a few. Your first pilgrimage, where was it, and what did you? Was there lots of prep, or you just said, "I'm going," and put your backpack on and?
I knew nothing. It was like August, July when I kind of had this insight. That's what I'm going to do, but I hadn't trained. I hadn't done anything. And I didn't know what to pack. So I had a friend that had been on the pilgrimage. She took me to Mountain Equipment Co-op and we got all suited up. She told me not to take a whole bunch of stuff. And so I went to Ireland first with Jennifer and I had a plan. I thought, okay, I'm going to be in Ireland for a month. I'm going to just train while I'm in Ireland. Well, I hadn't really considered what it would be like to get to the places where you could actually do training walks. And if you've ever been to Ireland, there's these very narrow roads. And literally, you take your life in your hand if you're walking with a backpack along those roads. So I soon became rather disenchanted with the training in Ireland. And I found myself at a small town, Dingle, I think it was. And I went to the tourist office, said, get me out of here. I need to get out. How do I get out? And so I just said, enough of this already. And she had this great plan. She says, oh yeah, but I said, every time I try and go somewhere, I have to traipse through cities and I can't get to where I want to walk very easily. So I was just in this grouchy kind of fed up mood. I was just wanting to get on with it. So she said, well, no, I can take. So she sends me down this path. This is the funniest story. And she says, I've got a great route for you. You'll be out of town really fast. And so I say, okay, I'll say one more, give it a shot. So I'm walking along this path and I come to this sort of fence that I have to crawl over. And then there's a left and a right. And she didn't tell me which one I was going. So I go to the left. I can hear the bog. I can hear the water under the bog. And I'm by myself. I said, nobody knows where I am. Like, I'm going to die here. And it's like every step I'm putting my pole down. And I'm like, seriously, there's some sheep there. They're going to find my bones at some point. And so I finally could see up to the road. I could see some cars up. So I managed to get up to that point and climbing up the hill. And I'm done by then. It's 5 o'clock. And I'm in the middle of I don't know where. And I ended up sort of walking down the hill and this car, I laid down on the ground. It was like 5 o'clock and I didn't know where I was. I thought, I just have to rest. This car pulls up. It's a lady. It says, what are you doing here? You should have been there by now. Like, she's like the lady that sent me on this wild goose chase actually drove up, found me, just happened. Spirit has this interesting way of connecting things together. She says, I'll drive you to a pub. And so she drove me somewhere. I couldn't even tell you the name of it. And the people there, like the next day was pouring rain and I wanted to get out and walk. And they said, no, there's a guy going to Kildare. And I said, I can take a ride with him. I'm going to Spain. Screw this. I'm just going to go. And so I hadn't done the training and I ended up in the airport at Biarritz. And I didn't even know how to get to St. John at that point. Like, I knew I had to get to Biarritz and then there was a transport, but I had no idea. And so I'm standing there. This lady comes up to me and she says, are you going to Santiago? Are you going on the journey, the pilgrimage? I said, yes. She says, well, I've got a cab. So three of us got together and we went to St. John. And that was the beginning of the actual pilgrimage. Although I just as in life, Neil, I think we're on pilgrimage all the time in our life. Like, it's just one thing to say I'm officially on pilgrimage, but everything all the things that come down in our life are really our opportunity to go through that inner journey. So yeah, we end up in St. John. I don't have a passport. You have a little passport that you get when you're walking where they stamp and they show where you've been. And so this lady says, well, I don't have a place to stay. I don't have a passport. So she said, come with me. We'll leave my bags because I'm checked in. And she goes up and says, my friend, can you give us some recommendations? And so he said, oh, there's a space left in the room you're in. So that done. And then I said, we have to go find passports. I can get you one right now. So there was all this sort of synchronicity of it starting. But what I hadn't planned on is the lack of training, walking over the mountains. So it didn't take very long until my body was for testing. And I was forced to walk slow. Like I was forced to actually slow down. I was by myself, which is the best way to do a pilgrimage, by the way, if you're walking. Yeah. And what I realized, like I started to realize I'd been rushing. That was my first insight. I've been rushing to get somewhere my whole life. Like part of me was always in that I have to get somewhere. And all of a sudden I was like, I like being last. Like, you know me, Neil, and a certain amount of competitiveness, but I got to like being last. And I just loved the quietness. So having an injury sometimes is a gift as part of the pilgrimage.
Absolutely. I'm like, what happened to Facebook? I mean, what happened to our show here? So you were unhappy where you were, but you had enough faith in the universe, God, synchronicities, just to go with it. So you ended up in the right place, and God looked after you and got you a room. And so do you have a lesson that you learned? What was one of your first lessons that you learned besides just taking your time and walking your own pace?
I think it's like, it was the core of me starting to see the synchronicities that would happen in my life, like to start to recognize that even though I felt like I was alone, there was things that were lining up for me that were exactly what I needed to do next, or the people. So one of I met this young Spanish guy, and he was kind of, when you see somebody naturally doing something, but they don't know that they're doing it. So he had already amassed followers along. He was like 20, a little chubby.
Yeah.
I hope he's not watching this because he's still a good friend, but he literally looked after me, and he looked after his whole tribe. He didn't know, and as most of us don't know at the time things are happening, where they're leading us to. So he now does documentaries on pilgrimages, and he does, like, he's just shifted into this gorgeous, gorgeous man. So I think I come to the conclusion that the universe is really on my side. The universe is really on my side. And when I could come to the place of, didn't matter, I could complain about my feet, I could complain about blisters or whatever, but really people would show up when I needed them to show up. People would just synchronistically. I didn't really come with anybody. I soon lost the 3 ladies that I started with. There was one woman that was, and they're bound to irritate, right? So this one German woman, she had poles that would click, and I was like, it never stopped. It was this incessant click, 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 click. And I would try and sort of sit back, and then she would wait for me. I would try to ditch her. I didn't want to say, I don't want to walk with you because your poles are driving me crazy. Mm-hmm. So I would sort of slow down, or I would try and talk to other people, and then she'd be waiting for me up ahead every time I did that. Mm-hmm. So that was the wisdom of that, I think, is just like to let go of some of the little things that are irritating and just go with whatever's going on, because it's really, it ended up that she found another group to walk with, which I was thankful to Spirit for redirecting her traffic to another direction.
Excellent. So you ill prepared to go to you haven't trained, but you're on it. You've given it. You're doing your best. You're learning lessons. Did you actually, on your first pilgrimage, did you complete it?
Oh, yeah, I did. And I think one of the things I would say to viewers, if they're thinking of pilgrimage, one thing about the Camino de Santiago, which is the one we're talking about, which is roughly, reminds me of another story I'm going to come back to. It's really cool. But there's a time when you're slogging through and it's day by day and you think you're not going to get them. Then you come to the last week and almost everything wants to slow down because you don't want it to stop. Like there's just this seduction of it that shows up. And it's like all of a sudden, like I'm just, every moment of it is starting to be precious as we get closer and closer to Santiago. But that I think is a big thing. I did finish, I was on strike, so I didn't get a certificate because I was in my holier than thou moment of the people that walk 100 get a same certificate as the people that walk 800. And I said, no, I'm not buying into that. So I actually, I didn't get my certificate. I did in other years, but I didn't that time. And I just was, there's a certain amount of my own sense of unfairness. They actually came up with a new certificate that actually said the distance on it, which made me a lot happier. But way back, this is in 2011. So it was before the Camino de Santiago became a household word. You know what I mean? Like it's like you don't find too many people now that don't know about it. But this was at the very beginning, before the movie The Way, before all the sort of North American tribe came through. But the European tribe had been doing these pilgrimages for centuries, really.
Yeah, it's interesting. One of my coworkers, when I worked for Alberta Environment, him and his wife walked the full pilgrimage, and he just couldn't get the full amount of time. And she wanted to do the full thing. He didn't really think it was his thing, so he picked up at the halfway point, wherever that is, and then they walked together for whatever it was, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, whatever the halfway number is. And then there were about a week left, and then they looked at each other, and then they separated because she just was there was it was beautiful, but my friend Dave realized that it's an individual journey, and he was, as much as he loved his wife, he was taken away by being there with her.
I think if I were to give everybody one piece of advice, I've taken groups, so that's a further along the timeline, but often I find that people want to go with someone, or I've actually been on a pilgrimage in Portugal where 3 women who talked the whole time. They literally walked together, and it was, and I see that quite often because people tend to run into really cool people. But in generally speaking, the advantage of being on your own is that you can meet those people at lunch, you can meet them at dinner. There's not a lot to do in these little towns at the end of the day. So rushing to get there is counterproductive because now you're sitting in this place that like sometimes three roads for 4 hours waiting to have some dinner. So I think there's a certain amount of what I suggest, mostly if I were telling people what's a good plan, is to try and at least walk in the morning by yourself. Like just set your intention, like put a quiet sign or something so people don't think you're rude, but just say to people, I'm quiet till lunch or something like that. And that allows, I think, because the whole thing is really that allowing that inner conversation to emerge. I don't think anybody really expects what they're going to hash through while they're on this time walking. Like you're there for 6 weeks. There's lots of times for lots of memories are coming back and saying, I wonder what I should have done then, or all these different should haves, could haves, right? But literally the best advice I can give is try and walk by yourself, at least in the morning. At the end of the day, now you want to find somebody that's going to distract you from how your feet are feeling and that kind of thing. But generally, and some people listen to music the whole time. But I think I never had those skills way back in 2011. That wasn't kind of, you didn't have earphones and those kinds of things very often. Like you had the little funny ones, but it wasn't the same as it is today, where you can just turn on a podcast or something and listen while you're walking. So that's the biggest sense of advice. Even if you go with someone, try to walk separately. Like try to walk so that you're actually on each of your own journeys. You're going to meet for lunch. You're going to have lots of time to talk to somebody at the end of the day.
Yeah, absolutely. So if I remember right, you've done 3 pilgrimages?
I have done 10 combinations of I've done 3 full Camino de Santiago, 2 by myself and 1 with a group. Then I've done about 6 half, and well, the other ones are either half or from Portugal going up, so shorter. But 3 full pilgrimages, and then so 10 in total of different combinations of those. Some starting in the middle, and not exactly in the middle, but at Burgos, or I did a couple in Portugal by myself. I actually love doing it by myself. I find I'm a bit of an explorer, but I just love to. One of the beautiful things about pilgrimage is you're in nature for such a long period of time, and that feeds my soul, feeds my heart.
So what I'm hearing, that with your 10, your full ones by yourself and your other combinations and your lead, that if people want to get a hold of you, there's a website below, marymagdalenepilgrimages.com, and you can connect with Ariana and see if what she's got is, if you want to know more about a pilgrimage, or you want to join up with her pilgrimage, or you can just connect with her on Facebook and see what she's all about. What we have a mutual friend, and Ariana took this beautiful and wonderful, I think she did half a Camino, this wonderful 90-year-old woman with her. So this is my personal bias towards Ariana, that if she's can look after a 90-year-old person and work with them to get them to reach their goal of like walking 300 kilometers, goodness gracious, she can work with old guys like me.
Well, I can tell you that was a blessing from Spirit. When I had done a talk at Unity, and Marjorie came up to me and she says, "This is kind of strange, but I think I'm supposed to walk this pilgrimage." And I'm like, I'm kind of like, you have to prove to me. So we had, I just said, okay, well, here's the thing. You have to get out and train. You have to do that. We have to have a plan. So we planned to do a half. And then she did. She walked in the gym, like all in the mall, I think all winter, like if we were going in May. And she literally, we did a test walk. I made sure that she could walk, and she made sure she was ready to go. So she was 90, and she just had this sense, like Spirit nudges to do something. And it was so magical. All the people walking wanted to have their picture taken with Marjorie, because first of all, Marjorie says she's an inspirational soul anyway. She never complained the whole time. She literally, I've never seen anybody that just took everything that showed. We had like gale winds, we had rain, she forgot I told her to buy gloves, right? And she didn't. And so we went one day and it's pouring like cold rain. And I said, okay, well, just put your hands in my shirt. And she said, now I'm sleeping with a woman and you want me to put my hands on your boobs? Like, it's just like, that was Marjorie. Like, Jen has an incredible sense of humor. We just monitored, obviously she walked over the pilgrimage. We did it over the Pyrenees. We did that in 2 days, like, because there's a service in St. John that will come and pick you up halfway up and then come down and then take you back. So we did that. And she literally was a trooper. Like, she didn't have any trouble climbing up those hills. So we just monitored where she was at each day, and if she had to take a taxi, she did. Like it was just like there's no point in, like it wasn't really a heroic thing. It wasn't about. So a lot of times on pilgrimage, people feel like they have to X, Y, Z. They have a set of rules that will be like, if I don't do this, if I actually take a taxi one day, if my leg's sore, I'm going to be disbanded from all the benefits of doing this. If I cheat, so somebody has defined what cheating looks like on a pilgrimage, and it's bullshit. Well, whoops, that's a pilgrimage thing. You might have to leave me out, but it's just you have to make it your own rules. You have to set and look at what's important to you, and if it's important to you not to take one, like not to miss one step, then great, do that. But you're going to walk all those extra steps in these little towns every time you get there. It's not like you're short on steps. So it's just like there was one time when I woke up in the morning, it was on that pilgrimage, it was in a albergue, and I got up in the morning and I couldn't walk to the bathroom. Like literally, I thought, oh my God, like I was terrified that I was going to have to take a plane home early or do something. I literally couldn't walk, and got out. Usually you can't stay more than one night. I took a taxi to the next town, and I ended up staying there for, I think, 3 days because my leg was really bad. And I got to work with a healer that I wouldn't have got to work with if I hadn't stopped in that little town. So it was that's when I say the synchronicities are there if we're open to seeing them. And then I just took my time leaving. My legs were in pretty bad shape having not trained. I'm gonna be pretty honest about that. But none of it was not doable. I mean, you just have to listen to the body and take your time.
Yeah, I've run marathons, and I run 42, and you've run distance running, a marathon, and nobody says you can't walk a little bit to recover your legs. And I suspect the Camino is the same. There's nothing to say that you have to power walk through it all, or you can't stop for a day, or take a cab, or do whatever it is that you need to do to look after your body.
I think there's a point where you do some adjusting. I didn't have a return ticket, so I had planned to do 100 days. That was a setup, some from Spirit, but I didn't have anybody to get back for because I had just gone through. I was in this place, a shifting place in my life, so I had no set time that I should be done that piece before I went to Bali. So I really didn't worry too much about it. Sometimes it's like taking the guidebook and dividing it in half. And that's the other thing on the pilgrimage to Santiago is if you follow the guidebook, it's going to be busy. And it's if you actually shift to the middle of the guidebook and end in the middle of each day, it's actually easier to find a place to sleep. It's easier to do all sorts of things. So, or sometimes it's just, I'm going to do a half day and I'm going to just take a rest. It's just like letting go of pushing because you've decided that you're going to do it in X amount of time. It's like, that from a marathon. Like you start out, you're going to sort of not do your fastest pace at the very beginning of a marathon. And then you just sooner you find your rhythm in that. And then I've run a marathon in Ottawa in front of Parliament Hill, and it was like they just paved the whole paveway, and it was like hot, and it was brutal. And I had 2 sore knees, and I had a lady that was going back and forth on her bicycle bringing me water to pour on my head, and I still, it's just I didn't meet my goal of 4 minutes for a 4 hour. I was 4:04 or something like that. But there's a point where it's like not going to happen.
Absolutely. So I'm gonna just jump us in here. So we're about halfway through the show, and I can't believe we've already spent almost 30 minutes here. And if you are viewing us on Facebook, I'd like you to, and you watch YouTube, I'd like you just to you go www.join.uplift.show, and or you can use the QR code and subscribe to our show. It's we'd love to have you as a subscriber. If and if that doesn't appeal to you, or you're not the subscribing kind of person, that's okay too. Just stay tuned as we continue on. So, Ariana, so you were doing the El Caminos, you've done like 10 of them, and then now your website says the Mary Magdalene pilgrimages. Like, what happened? What was the switch? You got tired? You knew all the speed bumps and everything on the pilgrimage, or was this a divine calling?
It was definitely a masterful plot from Spirit. And so I had this great, like I finally got this group of 7 women I thought were going to have a fabulous pilgrimage. And I can rightly say it was a pilgrimage from hell. And so there's a few things that because I tend to do things more easily than others, I didn't set the stage very well. So I made a few mistakes on the first things. Like there's definitely 2 sides to that story. But there came a point where I just felt like they were judging everything I did, and everything I did was not good, not good enough, not fine. So it was a tough, energetic pilgrimage. I had a lot of shit to deal with inside of me and how I dealt with issues, and that didn't help that journey at all. And yet, so they end up, these 7 women decide to sue me for $30,000. So that was part of the me deciding. There's 2 pieces to that story, but
yeah,
they ended up dropping the suit. But there was a time when after that pilgrimage was done, like I literally was doubting everything that I could do. Like I was doubting myself at the highest level. Like I felt like I'm a piece of crap, and whatever the story is. So I wasn't even thinking about what I would do next. They get on the plane to go home, and my good friend June Round is sitting in the front seat on the way, and she says to me, I'm having a Halloween party tomorrow. Would you like to come? And I'm like, I don't think so. So I had already said, like, there's not anything that would have got me to that party. We get to the luggage, and she says, by the way, I have something to talk to you about. And I'm like, feeling that, okay, I'm going to a stupid Halloween party. It turned out when I got there was a bunch of kids. It wasn't a fancy adult dress-up party, which I was relieved about. But she said, I've been getting a download that you're supposed to do Mary Magdalene pilgrimages. Like right in the end of where I was like done with pilgrimages completely, she brings up this download that she's getting my download. So I said, she said, there's 3 books I want you to read. And so I did. I went and read those books. And it was like, yeah, I want to do this. And so Mary Magdalene pilgrimages were birthed at that point. I did a first pilgrimage with 4 people. I didn't know what I was doing because obviously it's a different kind of pilgrimage. We're in a bus, so we're not like carrying backpacks and walking. But it's more geared to a spiritual connection than the other kind. Like there's a different kind of spiritual connection. And so I read the books. I decided to go. And here's what's interesting, Neil. When you talk about how does our path unfold for us? About 2005, I was on a Abraham Hicks cruise, and this guy was reading a book called Anna, Grandmother of Jesus. And I picked up that book, and it was like vibrating in my hand. I'm a computer, left brain person. Feeling energy out of something was not my norm. And so I knew I had to get that book. And so Anna, Grandmother of Jesus was planted, the actually seed before June got that message. Almost 10, 12 years before that, the seed had already been planted. I just didn't know that it was part of me. Like you said at the beginning, did you always dream of doing this? I never in a million years could have told you anytime along that path that I would be doing spiritual pilgrimages. So I think for anybody listening, it's just like never make any assumptions about what spirit has on the plan for you. It's like, so that I did the first one, and then we had COVID. I did another one, and we went through COVID, and so it's come to a place where now I went in 2020. Where are we? 2023, and I didn't have enough people like to even break even. But I've taken deposits, so I have to go. So I go in May, and it worked out reasonably well. I came back, and I thought, well, I think this is done. Like I can't see where the future of it is. Like it feels too hard. You know what I mean? Like sometimes you get to a place in something you've chosen, and I was pretty much ready to hang up that hat. And for the first time in my life, I just sat for a while, and I just sat and thought about it. I had this conversation with Spirit to say, I can't, it's too stressful. What else do you have for me? Like, give me assignment number 4. But there's a thought that came in, how do I organize it so that I wouldn't be stressed? And I put that plan into place, and it was like almost magically everything shifted for me energetically, because I wasn't trying so hard. I had this big shift. I put it out there to do another one, and it was full in like 3 months, like September, 4 months, it was full. And so that was a shifting in energy of abundance, of finance, and how one of the biggest things that I tend to have forgotten is asking for help. Handing it over. So that's what happened with that 2 months where I was just sort of, I don't know what to do. I just finally said, okay, you guys, if you want me to keep going, you're going to have to give me a way to do it so that I'm not constantly stressed about it. And that was like, it's literally people that knew how stressed I was to go on that 2023 one with the 5 people. They're astounded. Like they're just, it's almost like a switch got turned. Like there's a switch happened. I don't feel that much difference, but how I restructured to do it completely changed it all. And so right now I'm sold out for 2024 September. I'm almost sold out for 2025 May. And somebody actually signed up for 2025 September, which I hadn't even planned. She didn't even see she just said, I want to come, like put me as number 1. So that's the shifting, but also the Magdalene Energy, Neil, is so strong on the planet today. The Magdalene Energy is extremely, like there's, her mission is to help us like midwife ourselves into the 5th dimensional energy, into the integration of the masculine feminine. So there's, like I'm getting helped upstairs. Like I have a marketing team upstairs that sends everybody to Google and they all find me. I don't do ads. I don't do anything. It's just like all coming from somewhere else. And so I believe I've just got a new book that I'm doing book studies on called Mary Magdalene Beckons. And that book has dramatically changed how I view myself, because I always had this kind of self-judgment about being good at logic and rate. There was a part of me that was always kind of defensive about it, like that I wasn't being a proper feminine person. I wasn't doing whatever. So it was a big struggle for me for a long time, like looking at it. And I was really resistant to this thing that doing this programming computers was masculine, and that over there healing other people was going to be feminine. And it felt like I lived in 2 different worlds. It was like this part of me that was so good at what I did, and I was in a lot of self-judgment around it. And the whole book of Mary Magdalene Beckons talks about integrating within ourselves the aspects of the masculine, the aspects of the feminine that we all hold. It's not just women and men separately, but in in our beingness, we're all going to be combinations of those things, and it's like a continuum. And once I came to that place where there was really nothing wrong with me, and then I started to see, well, writing a software program is very feminine because it's all about creation. Like all of a sudden, boom, it was like, oh, okay, I was doing it all the time. And I thought like I was in this massive judgment about it. And literally, as I started to look at it, it's intuition, it's creating, it's looking at an issue. And then the bigger thing is like, can you let your heart be the master and the brain be the servant? So then you put it together. Now you have to write some code. But do you know what I'm saying? Like, so at some point, I have fallen in love with myself, like not in an egoic, rah, 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 look at me, but in just this truly coming home to understand that I've been gifted in certain ways. And some things are very easy for me, and some things are moving towards the other side of that spectrum. But I think for anybody that's struggling a little bit with their identity and what they came to do, that's my sense of the Mary Magdalene Beckons. If anybody wants to touch base with me on Facebook or somewhere, I will be doing a book study of that in the fall. But it is probably the most impactful. I've done like many book studies on early Christianity and all that, but this book that came out massively, she is here to midwife where we're going as humanity. I truly believe that to be true, and her power is immense on the planet right now as an ascended master. So,
and what was the name of the book?
The book is called, I don't know if you're going to be able to see it, but it's called Mary Magdalene Beckons. I'll just try and get it out of the light a little bit. And it's a book won a Book of the Year award, won several awards. But it's like a guidebook for living. It's like a guidebook for living, like moving forward into a new humanity. So it's Mercedes Kirkel, Kirkel, Mercedes like the car. And again, that's the nudge from spirit, because I had gone to buy another book on Amazon and somebody had bought this book and I thought, oh, that's interesting. And literally, my life is massive. Like I was pretty comfortable where I was, but I've never been this whole, I've never felt so good about who I am. And this would be for men's groups, because she's talking about the integration of the masculine and feminine. So I just like, I can take a little one-liner out of here, but it's really, that's her goal is, out of all the things I've read in terms of moving forward, I've waited 2,000 years to come forth for the timing of the ages when the divine feminine can be received, honored, and or celebrated in a rightful place as the equal partner and lover of the divine masculine. So it's like, that's the vision of this book. And I think this is a great book for men's groups. There's a lot of wisdom that isn't sort of definitely aimed towards women themselves, but it's like, it has brought me into this more integrated, I guess I would say more integrated into all aspects of myself, and just knowing I'm perfectly designed. Like I don't have to feel bad about, I don't listen to a symphony and want to go play the music. I just go to enjoy the music. Like I think what we have to look at is when we're resonating where we really want to do those other things that are coming in front of us, then there's a nudge from spirit to say, maybe you want to move somewhere else for a while. But
well,
yeah,
for me, this is an interesting, because this morning I was going, okay, I've read all the books that I'm going. So what book do I need? What book do I need that would change? Because like I'm dealing with a lot of men's groups, and we're trying to get a lot of men struggle with the warrior energy, the king energy, and still being in their heart based. Because there's this dichotomy that they think that if they're in their heart, they're looked as soft and sissy, and they're not well as respected. And it's like, no, you can be a heart-based person that still takes no guff or no shit from anyone, but you can be a loving, compassionate person and stand up for your family, stand up for your partners or whoever. So yeah, I would just, I think I'm going to order a book.
I well, I would highly recommend it, and it like for your marriage, for whatever routine, and I think
Yeah.
it's all. I think the beauty of it. I'm only halfway through because I'm doing 2 simultaneous book studies of it right now. That's how deeply it's impacted me. So um, I'm offering the current ones for free. You can jump in the middle of this book. It's not kind of one of those books that you have to start, but
So this is a perfect. I'll just stop you. So if you want to connect with Ariana to jump in on her book studies, either come to her website and she's got a sign up page, so you for some information, or jump onto her Facebook and DM her, and
mm,
she will. So either way, so highly recommend. However you find this, excuse me, this podcast, whether it's live or in replay, um, get a hold of Ariana to join the book study. So that it's an easy way to find out
yeah.
whether this works for you as
Well,
the viewer, listener, or our audience member. So yeah,
I
this is
think it's
great.
a great way to get to know someone's energy. Um, Even though we're partway through, I will start another one in the fall, but it will be a pay for offering. But the one in May, I think we have 3 or 4 weeks left. Uh, it's the discussions are fabulous. Like I do 2 Tuesday 10:30 and 6, and Thursday 10:30 and 6. So I can get everyone around the globe. If anybody that wants to jump in, and you can come in the fall if you really want to start from the bottom. But it is so lovely to be able to look at a concept and then have a discussion around it. And I was just listening to someone else on a podcast who had a 3 days men's retreat, and um, it's so inspiring to me, the men's groups that are showing up at a higher level. And this guy is like 25, beautiful soul, and he was sharing on this podcast a lot of little pieces of what they did on that 3 days. And so that's what I see. That's when I say Mary Magdalene isn't here just for the women. It's here for this movement into a more what we used to have. You're talking about men thinking if they're in the heart. Goddess Pele, and there's lots of goddesses that are fierce. Like you just don't assume that the women are going to be flying down. But and so for men as well, like there is this, women at some level. I think men have been given sort of a hard time trying to figure out what women want, and unfortunately, we've gone through some places where men were like struggling to even know if they want to open the door for someone, right? So we're in the evolution, I think, where that's kind of flowing back into what would be normal. When we were in the time of early goddesses, there's a island in Crete, I think it's Crete, that was called where they discovered a whole society where everybody lived together in partnership. And that's what I envision for where we're going on the planet. This is like this partnership where all the skills and talents, nobody's like pigeonholed into something. Like you just take advantage of what people are good at, but you work together and there's a synergy around it. I think that's where we're heading as humanity. It doesn't look like it on the surface right now. I can tell you, it's like everybody is like being pushed against everybody else. Like there's this massive polarity that's showing. But my vision, I totally see through that into where we're going as humanity. And I'm excited. I actually am excited about where humanity is going. Like I don't necessarily want to talk about what's on the news and what seems to be coming down, but I know we're good. I know we're going to be okay. And when I say that, I'm not Pollyanna pretending that there's not shit going on. Like there's a lot of crap going on, but what is coming forward is truth, and I think people are waking up, and it's a beautiful future for humanity showing up with Mary Magdalene at the helm. So it's like, no, you don't have to have a guy at the helm. Like, you can still be a feminine power horse. And Mary Magdalene took her like when she was in the time of Yeshua, she played the back role. Like, I believe they were married and that they had children, but she didn't need the spotlight. In fact, it was safer for her life not to be in the spotlight. So so once the crucifixion was done, there's many other stories you can dissect in terms of what actually happened at that point. But when she came to France, that's why we do our pilgrimages in France. They came to France after the crucifixion. Her reputation in France, there's like Église de la Madeleine all over the place. Like everybody in France knows who she was. She's in the same realm as Joan of Arc. So you talk about a heroine, many others, but here she's back after 2,000 years, ready to lead the charge, to unify the masculine and feminine, powerful woman, powerful ascended master, here to assist. So for anybody that's wondering, how do I connect, or just sit and meditate for a while and ask her to show up, ask her your questions. And, I think it's amazing actually how, I've often, when I was studying at the beginning, it's like, how come it took 2,000 years for this, all the teaching of Yeshua, which is basically two things. You didn't need a church. Love one another and let go of judgment, period. That's it. Pretty much that summarizes the whole teachings. And yet they came, that same as Anna, grandmother of Jesus, anchored me into the Magdalene. When they came down, they knew the patriarchy was already strong at that time on the planet. So there was no, like, they weren't like surprised, I don't think, of how it went. I mean, there's many people that felt frustrated by how the church took not his true teachings and went with that and created a lot of power and a lot of creative fear for people. That if you're not a good person and you go do this, you're going to hell. Basically, there's a lot of that going on, and that's not what was taught. Jesus never said anything about sin other than it was like missing the mark. So, but we're moving away from that. People are starting to get more consciously aware of what's really true and what's really where we're supposed to live as humanity.
I chuckle because you mentioned the word sin, and there was a comedian, I just saw his TikTok. He says, if we don't sin, Jesus died for no reason.
I shouldn't listen to you and drink water.
He says, because Jesus paid for our sins. So if we don't sin, he died for no reason. But that's not the reason to not be good people and not be, I don't like the word sin, but we all need to be more loving and compassionate and caring for our neighbors. Everyone could do a better job.
I catch myself. What I find happening from the book, and really is, every time I get triggered by something, which does happen still, even though I'm pretty, I figured I'd cleared a lot, I still sometimes get to layer 17. But it's almost like I'm so much more aware and conscious of looking at, when am I out of alignment? When am I not feeling love in each moment? If you ask the question, what would love do? And so, I was walking up some stairs today and this guy comes down, and I had noticed how quickly I went to a little bit of judgment. And then I got to the top and said, oh, I caught myself in judgment there. So our journey is really cleaning house. Our own house is the biggest journey I could say to, we're coming towards the end. But the biggest thing I would say is do the inner work. Like, clean out the skeletons, clean out those things in your closet that are still, when somebody can say something and it stays with you, for more than 5 minutes. So if it sits there and percolates and stews, all of a sudden there's work for you to do. There's something to look at. And literally that's our job right now. And it's once you've got that sense of it, like it's just like I'm on it. I'm gonna look where this came from. And I think that's in itself, how do we become better friends? How do we become better partners in our marriage? How do we, when we start to look at something repeating over and over again that always seems to get our attention, and even little things, like it turns out like at a certain point, it becomes just little things. But it's the little things, you're in a marriage. Like I have been a widow for 22 years. So like I haven't had to do that dance, right? So, but we're in relationship with the world, with Gaia, with everything. Like we have to not separate out who we are responsible for as just living on this planet. Like what is our role? It doesn't have to be on some stage somewhere, but it's kindness, like loving kindness. And when you can smile at somebody, you never know what that smile meant to that person. You really don't. It doesn't have to cost a lot of money, but it's just be kind.
That's beautiful words to end with. I love it. And I would only ask for every interaction as you go forward with whoever it is, if you find yourself triggered, take a breath before you speak. Take a breath. Because just sometimes by taking that simple breath, we can filter out what is we really want to say, and we can keep our relationships healthy and from going to the he said, she said kind of thing. So whether you're listening to our show in live or replay, know that you are worthy of all your hopes and dreams. And I invite you, if you are thinking about going on a pilgrimage, or you want to know more about a pilgrimage, or you want to be part of Ariana's book study, just jump on, connect with her, and great things will happen. And so with that, I want to say have a great day, and whether you're whatever time zone you're tuning this into, it's been a wonderful time to spend with you. Thank you for being here, Ariana. And with that, good night.
All right. Thanks, Neil. It's been a pleasure. Take care.
Oh, I'm supposed to play a video. There we go.